Hello, my lovely Scorpios. Well, it's time for another one of those wonderful readings using the Cards of Humanity deck. This is, of course, Madame Zezuba here, hoping for all my lovely little Scorpions that you'll be able to get some sort of enlightenment for this reading, which is for the period of time commencing on the 2nd of December 2024. If your sun or moon is in Scorpio, or if you have a Scorpio rising, or if you know a Scorpio and you want a better understanding of what they might be going through over the next week, this is the reading for you. Of course, in a sense, these readings are also timeless, because when the reading finds you, or when you find the reading, that's when you're meant to hear this message, regardless of when the cards were originally cast. So I'm now just shuffling for my little Scorpions. Shuffle, 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 shuffle. And I think that's enough shuffling there. And now we will cut the cards and we will see what the cards have to reveal. So first position here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and our final resolution here, card 13. Alright, now, first card will indicate where the reading is coming from, what the energetics or the situation behind it gives a context to everything, darlings. So here we go. An endless stream of diarrhea. There's been a lot of talk, there's been a lot of action, there's been a lot of movement, but it's all really just been going on and on and on. Nothing's being resolved. Nothing is going anywhere. It isn't particularly healthy. It isn't particularly pleasant, but it is very purging. We have that to be thankful for. So somehow the situation is about something where a lot of things have been coming out. However, it is an endless stream, so it doesn't seem to be stopping any time soon, or that is how it seems. Another thing is, of course, the diarrhea. If it goes on for too long, leads to dehydration and death, as anybody who has ever dealt with or knows anything about dysentery would know. So this is a situation that is not particularly great. I'm sorry, Scorpios. Obviously something big has been going on in the background, but it's been going on and on and on forever, and without any sense of resolution. So this has led you to become a particular version of yourself. And that version of yourself is revealed by child beauty pageants. So I'm getting from this child beauty pageants, it's all about appearances, being nice, being cute. Your response to this might, while not necessarily being denial, has been to put a nice face on it as much as possible, to put a more pleasant appearance to it. However, there is a dark side also to child beauty pageants. As we all know, they can be about appearances more than reality. It could be that behind the scenes there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of energy being invested in winning, at looking good. But also one could argue that because child involved, the innocence of self, the innocence of the inner child is being brought into question here, being put in a position that perhaps a child should not be put into. I think this situation is coming back to your own childhood, because this is the card of yourself in this reading. So somehow I think this endless stream of diarrhea has really impacted you as a child, and as a child you were being canoodled into being put your best foot forward, your best appearance of self, regardless of anything that might be coming in the background. Not a particularly healthy situation, darlings. And to further the matter, what is the negative forces that have contributed to this situation are boogers. Another childlike image here. Boogers, snot. Again, we're dealing with an orifice that is producing muck, producing something that also can spread disease, darling. So others have also infected you. This is coming back, darling, to a very serious situation. This is really more about a child being asked to maintain the appearance of normalcy in the midst of a constant stream of nastiness and also getting more nastiness from others. On the positive side of this situation is this erectile dysfunction. I would hazard a guess that this means male influences in your life that were attempting to violate you further. However, the violation was not able to occur because of the dysfunction. So I see in this situation that there were a lot of bad juju, darlings, and that you were asked to keep up appearances, but the people that wanted to harm you weren't able to do nearly as much harm with dysfunctional masculine energy as they might have wanted to do. This does not necessarily mean male individuals. It could actually mean masculine energy in whichever form it came from. This is very interesting. As a result of who you are in this current situation, as a result of what's been happening in the past, people have been responding to you in a particular way, and that's revealed by this card. A tiny horse. A tiny horse. Horses represent transport, could also represent a Sagittarian, which is very, very interesting considering the Sagittarians just next door to Scorpions. However, in this particular case, I believe that the tiny horse represents transport, a way of escaping. It wasn't much. People are offering you a way out. It doesn't seem like much, but it might just be enough. If the situation doesn't change, then other people responding to this situation with you, they see what is going on with you. However, the tiny horse indicates that if you ride the tiny horse, you can move away from this situation. However, it might not seem enough. And that's okay, darlings. It doesn't always have to seem enough for it to be enough. Nevertheless, if you do take the tiny horse that's being offered at the moment, African children. This is very interesting. African children. The current future means African children. When you think about African children, what do you think about? Do you think about your own children if you come from an African background? Do you think about African children in the broader, more cliched sense of children growing up in places and in locations that are not Western, that are not part of the normal experience of maybe the middle classes of the Western industrial nations? So the current future seems to be geared towards African children, but African children are often children in need of help. What Spirit is actually saying is that what needs to be done here is that you need to use this tiny horse that's being offered to you, this way out, and it will result in a future that has somehow involved African children. It could be that you might give birth to African children. It could be that you're helping African children directly or indirectly through donations. Nevertheless, I get the feeling from this reading is that you're being asked that your own help will come through the helping of others. There will be forces working against this future if the current situation is the same as it is. Masturbating. Yes, here we're looking at self-indulgence that doesn't produce anything. So what we're looking at here, darlings, is that the tiny horse is being offered to you. The negative consequences is if it's not being handled properly will be much to do about nothing. There'll be a lot of virtue signaling, if you like, darlings, but not actual any real help happening, either for the African children, whatever that represents to you, or for yourself, taking the tiny horse out of a life of keeping up appearances and child beauty pageants. On the other hand, here we have the positive influences that are at play here in the current situation. Covering myself with Parmesan cheese and chili flakes because I am a pizza. Oh, I'm sorry about that, darlings. What is going on? Sorry about that. That is possibly Spirit telling us that there is something important going on. Covering yourself with Parmesan flakes and chili flakes because I am a pizza. It would seem, darling, that the positive influences here is that you will be a source of nourishment for these African children because you will take on a new appearance. You will appear differently. The tiny horse is asking you to make a different appearance in the world, to engage with the world differently. Obviously, there's more to this because there are more cards to be revealed. And what we're looking at is that Spirit is going to be calling upon you to be a different version of yourself, and that will come through the changed self. The changed self in this instance is a Jehovah's Witnesses. This is very interesting. Spirit might not be asking you to become a Jehovah's Witness, or there may be Jehovah's Witnesses in your life, but there is something in the Jehovah's Witness experience that you are being called upon to take into yourself. I suggest then, because Spirit is asking you to do that, is to maybe look literally at Jehovah's Witness teachings and asking yourself, perhaps there is something in there that will help me get out of this situation of trying to look good and trying to be a more effective person who isn't just virtue signaling, but is actually providing nourishment or support to people in need of support. And through that you will find your own salvation. Also, think about it in a more literal sense. A witness, Jehovah is one of the names of God. So it could also be a call to bear witness to acts of God. What would God do in this situation is possibly what Spirit is asking you. What would love do in this situation? Now, this will cause blowback, of course, in other people. Dick fingers. You are not necessarily going to be supported by your immediate group as you seek to change yourself, as you seek to take inspiration from particular people in a particular way of looking at things. You are probably going to get resistance. This is inevitable, darling. This is inevitable. Nevertheless, you have forces working against you. But you also have work in this particular position. You're not going to get support from others immediately. But there are energies that will support this change. Radical Islamic terrorism. Radical Islamic terrorism in this position means you need to employ means that are not necessarily violent, but that might be seen as extreme within the context of the world as you know it. It might not be extreme. It might in fact be something that other people would look on and say that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do under those circumstances. But it will be perceived as others as being extreme. The other force that's working in your favour is not reciprocating oral sex. This really means that people are going to help you, but you are not necessarily being asked to help them back. I think what is happening in this situation, darling, is that the people will be coming in to help you because they will see what you are trying to do, that you are trying to resolve your situation through what might be perceived by others as extreme measures, however, that are necessarily helping those who need help in an inspirational way through perhaps a revelation that will lead you away from simply making the appearance of helping others. But you are not going to be asked to pay back this help in any way, if that makes sense, darlings. I think it does. Because sometimes people help and they want something back. Not in this particular case. I think they were being asked to, that help is on its way and it won't necessarily ask for help back. Now, if you take on this role and this changed self, it will ultimately lead to former President George W. Bush. Now, whatever you might think of former President George W. Bush, like any presidency, there were good and bad aspects. I sense, though, that this is dealing with the extreme terrorism, which is very interesting because, in fact, George W. Bush did, in fact, deal with radical Islamic terrorism in that event that we all know so well. However, what Spirit is saying is that the means that you will employ will ultimately lead to resolution in your taking a position of authority in response to perhaps injustice. And in this sense, if you take this on, that you will not only find your own salvation, but you will also find the salvation of others, but you will ultimately be in a position of authority and power, and that you will make an effective change for the better in response to this situation where this energy is actually working in your favor. Darlings, I hope that this is extremely clear to you. Just a quick recap. A situation which has never been resolved. Forces working against you have not, in fact, been able to really affect your core self, although you have been putting on a show. You have been offered a way out. It may not seem like much, but it is the way out, and that is through the helping of other people. That if you conduct this situation correctly, then by taking on a new appearance of trying new things, being a new thing in relation to this situation, you will not fall into the trap of empty virtue signaling. You will draw inspiration from people who may have had dealings with these sorts of situations before. People part of a religious group, perhaps. There will be blowback, inevitably, from the people who are used to the status quo. However, in response to that, you will be given help from people who will not expect anything back. There will be the means that you go about resolving the situation might seem radical to others, but it won't necessarily be radical to the others who are actually supporting you. And ultimately, it will lead you into a position of effective authority in resolving this particular instance in this instance. I hope that's very clear, darlings. See you next time. Bye-bye, lovely Scorpios. Toodaloo.